All right. So the thing that I like to talk about is why is management always focusing on either the Scrum Masters or project managers or even product owners, right? So as you just said, Emeka, you are a certified Scrum Master, as I think, or a product owner, and in the organization like to invest in these roles, and strangely they forget about the developers. If you want to be successful in an approach with Scrum, right, even on an agile approach, this is really a big mistake. And this actually shows me a little misunderstanding of what it's actually all about. All right. So this is what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to highlight the differences. And the origin or the background of that, and it's the kind of thinking, right? It's the management thinking. And I would like to share with you a Miro board. So I'm going to paste, actually, just a second. I'm going to paste this board. We have some, just a second, guys. I'm going to show you this. And it also shows a little bit the style of my training class. So I'm going to paste the link in the board, right? So here you have what you see here. First of all, this is how we work in our training classes. This is a very interactive, collaborative approach, and we're using this tool called Miro, right? So you can look at the different slides, and we're actually using them while we are teaching, right? So so here, if you're interested in the CSD, you have the details here, you have the links, and you have some discount stuff and all that, right? So
we can call you loud. Do for class.
right. So can you all see the screen well?
Okay.
Okay. So let's have a look. What's different in the way that people plan and manage a project in a traditional approach? So the traditional approach is actually based on the thinking of divide and conquer. I mean, that sounds okay, doesn't it? If you have a big problem, we try to reduce the problem into small problems, and we want to tackle each problem separately. The idea is actually not wrong, but it's actually how it's executed, which is the problem. So in a traditional approach, what do you have? You have guys, right? Let's say on the top of the food chain, right? So you have the guys from leadership, right? And they usually, what they do, well, they do the big thinking, right? They say, okay, we understand the problem, so this should be a brain. Maybe I do this again, right? So this is like, okay, we do a lot of thinking and we build a plan, right? Based on the plan, what happens is they build the plan is thought of this hierarchical structure, right? So you have a plan that will be executed by other guys, right? Maybe some managers, right? And in the very end, this is a plan, and these guys then in turn are responsible for putting work to other people, right? To assign work, right, according to that plan, right? So you have this kind of plan that actually represents this kind of hierarchical structure. So, but how is that thinking working? Well, the idea is that you have this plan to create this big product. Let's say it represents what we want to do in the project. That's the thing. Okay. How is this then broken down into the plan? And this is the divide and conquer approach of thinking. We'll say, okay, let's break down this big thing into 4 smaller things, right? And then, so if this is our product, right, broken down, and then it will be broken down in even smaller things. So we have these small pieces, like components, if you like, of your product. And this happens more and more and more. And in the end, right, it's each small piece of your plan will be distributed to some guy working on it, right? So you have here this guy is focusing on that piece, and we have other people, everybody working on pieces. Okay, and maybe you have heard of these approaches, had these big plans called this work breakdown structures. So these are the kind of names that we have. And this is a plan where you have like the whole is broken down into pieces, and it goes down to the small parts, the technical parts, right? This is this typical divide and conquer thinking, right? And also, if you look at the execution, how does the execution work? Well, you have kind of a flow, right? A flow of execution. It's a linear approach. So the thing is, this actually works well. It can work, especially for certain type of problems. And it reflects the engineering thinking. This is engineering, right? So, and this is approach which is really successful in areas like for building houses, right? For building bridges, for building things like machines. And the problem only is it only works for certain kind of problems. It's not, you cannot use it for everything, right? So whenever you are able to disassemble something, imagine you take a car or the engine of a car and you break it down into the small pieces. And then you can examine each piece and try to understand what it does, right? And if you think a lot, right, but you can put it back together and you can understand how it works, right? So, and here we have a problem. We have the illusion that we can use this approach for any kind of problem. But where it actually works is for complicated things, right? So this is possible. This kind of problems, they can be solved, but these are the kind of problems where you have one predictable solution, right? So that's the mindset of traditional management. And it sounds okay, doesn't it? Right? But then we discover that certain things just don't work, right? So maybe someone can someone tell me a software product, a very successful software product, maybe some internet app, something. Can you name me one? Huge success. YouTube. Right. So I enjoy YouTube. That's good. But let me ask you a question, Shwaita. Do you think YouTube has been planned?
No, actually, they had a totally different plan. They were not. They were trying to be like an interaction app, and it ended up to be something different.
Yes. So if I recall, it was an online dating app, something
Online
like that.
dating app. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Online dating app, and there is
For
no
people,
more dating.
yeah, for people to meet and so
Yes.
and then you have that one guy making that plan, but it turns out to be something totally different. And this is really, really interesting. And you could name any big software product that you find, and that's a huge success currently, and you can bet on it that it's not the way it has been planned.
Yeah, like Apple, they were never into the phone business. They were into microchips, and then they suddenly are the biggest in the phone.
Yes, and as a company, if you look from the perspective of very macro perspective of company, they pivot, they change, they learn, and they adapt. So let's have a look at how does this kind of planning work? Is that plannable? The thing is, it's inherently not plannable. So how do you approach this kind of work? right? So let me share the next screen with you guys. So here we have to talk about evolution. So and this is also the focus that I want to have for this conversation. We need a different approach to management, a different approach to solving problems. And how do we as developers fit into that big picture? So I found this really interesting citation of a guy called Gail. So, and this is Gail's law. I think I forgot the name. So let me put the name here. This is Gail's law. So what does this law say? You really have to take a little bit of time to read this, but it basically says, right? If you have a complex system that works, right? Whatever that is, right? It could be YouTube, if you like, a software product. It could be any kind of product, right? And it is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. So if you have something complex and it works and it's fantastic, it gives you value, then you can be sure that it's the product of an evolution. So maybe if you take the example of YouTube. So YouTube, as it is as a complex product, and I'm sure this complex, right? It started as a small thing. It started maybe as like this dating app, right? And it evolved into something more. So a complex system designed from scratch never works, right? So these kind of products, whenever there is complexity involved, it has not been designed as such, right? And you cannot patch it up. And you have to start over with the working simple again, right? So that's the idea of Gail's law. A strange thing. So yeah. So what does it mean? So let's have a look. If we think about building products, how would that look like? So because if you look at this approach, well, the idea is you take a big thing, you break it down into small parts, right? And after breaking it down and building all the small parts, you go here and you assemble them again, right? You take that piece plus that piece, you put them all together, right? And then you say, okay, now we just integrate this, test it, and we have this one system, right? So how could we do this another way? So Gail talks about evolution. So, and this is how we have to understand how a complex product evolves, right? So you start with a small thing, right? This very small version of your product, and you make sure that it works, right? So it should be something valuable, running. It should be running. It should be something. It should not be a plan. It should not be like a Gantt diagram or something like that. No, it should be really something usable. And then you say, okay, it's a small thing, it's working. Now let's evolve this. Let's put another layer of functionality on top of it. And you create the next version. And you make sure it works. And let's see if it works for you, right? So maybe that's YouTube number version 2. And then you learn somehow, and they say, okay, now let's take the next step. And here we go. We are adding a next layer of functionality on top of it. And we make sure it's running. It also works. And then again, okay, what's the next step? And again and again. So this is how evolution works. This is how nature works. This is this kind of, let's call it an organic approach. Okay, so good. But how does it look like? How does a plan for that looks like? And that's a curious thing. How would a plan for that look like? How can we make this a plan? And the idea is actually, well, if we had this small thing, we needed a plan for the very small thing. So we create, for this very first version here, let me change the color. Okay, that very first version, it will have a small plan, right? This is my personal symbol for a small plan, right? So this is an objective, right? And this is, have you heard of OKRs? Who has heard of OKRs? Objectives.
Results.
Exactly. So the kind of plan that we do in Agile, it's kind of like that. So if you heard of, if you have ever heard of user stories or even acceptance criteria, this is in essence, and it's an objective-based plan, right? You say, okay, what would success look like? What's the need? What's the objective that we want to achieve? And how does it look like? What are the criteria for success or something like that, right? So that's the basic idea. So our plan for something like that is like that. So you have you can stack these small objectives, right? And you say, okay, let's put them in a list, right? And we start with the most important one. So each of these versions has a small, let's say, a small plan, but it's a very high level plan. It's a different kind of plan, right? So because we know that in complexity, it's not worth it to invest too much into one specific plan, right? So this makes plans very different. So in agile planning, we distinguish these objectives, right? And we call them the what plan. That's the what part. What do we need, right? And we try to postpone as much as possible the how, right? So we have always this balancing, right? So, well, if we compare this now, if you look at the traditional approach, you have the big upfront plan, and you have a guy, a project manager, someone taking responsibility for that plan, right? To deliver something. And now we have to talk about people, right? So now we're approaching the people part. So here we have our developers. Maybe we start with an architect. Maybe we have a business analyst in the beginning, or, right? Someone writing requirements. And then we have an architect, right? Creating the first upfront architecture design. Then we have programmers. Then we have testers. And then we deploy this somehow. So we have operations people. And based on this plan, we have our someone assigning these pieces of work, right? And the thing is, the communication is very specific and directed. So product manager assigns these work and expects feedback from you, right? So you have this kind of accountability here. So that's the traditional approach. So, but what do we want to achieve? If we compare this with the evolutionary approach, how does that work? Well, basically, we don't have this plan. We have a team, right? Very specific special team. Let's call it the Scrum team in our case, right? And we have this kind of plan we have this list of goals, right? All small goals we want to achieve. And the approach is not, as we have seen, it's not linear from A to B. It's evolutionary. So evolution means, well, we are working in cycles. We have the same approaches happening all the time. And we are not working towards only just delivery. We are working towards what we consider, we need to understand what is success. So it's not plan-based. Actually, we need a goal and success-based goal, right? And so we can use descriptions of success as a product goal. We can use also approaches like vision-based goals, right? We need to understand what is success, and we have to constantly look and learn what success actually means. We have to update our plan all the time. So, and how does this evolutionary delivery work? Well, actually, in each cycle, we have to deliver something that works, right? Something small. It might be small, not a problem, right? Let's be realistic. We are not able to deliver the big thing in one go, of course not. So we deliver something small. You know what we said, right? We something that is valuable, that is complex, well, it evolved from something more simple. And that's how it actually works. So we have something simple, and then we iterate, we create a new version, right? And we make sure it works too. So, and with each iteration, that small thing starts to become more and more complex. And we are learning how to deal with it, right? Each cycle. So that's how we working, how we create these stepping stones towards what we consider success. So that's the approach, that's, if you like, that's the mechanical part of the approach, which is called, right, this is the evolution part. But there is something more. And we are slowly, we are approaching the conversation towards the developers, right? So how about the developers? So the thing is, if you look at the traditional approach, we have a bottleneck. So guys, where's the bottleneck here? Can you see the bottleneck? What do you think? Even with the best of teams, even if you have this fantastic project manager, but do you see a bottleneck? Anyone? Well, everybody has to talk to the project manager, right? Everybody has to respond to the project manager. Project manager signing work. There's the project manager getting the results. And the end, project manager doing the orchestration part. And this can actually work up to a certain point. And after that certain point, then it breaks down because it's because of the complexity. It's just too big a challenge. And here we have this new idea that, and this is part of the agile thinking, right? It's we have to leverage everybody's brain. So here, the first approach, we have one big brain. That's one person doing the most important thinking. But this is limited to a certain extent. And after, so the idea is, how can we then leverage, well, everybody's intelligence? Maybe we can achieve something more, right? So in the best case, 1 + 1 here is 2. How can we make 1 + 1 be more than 2? Right? And this is when we're talking about co-intelligence. If we put people together and make them really collaborate, we can create these synergies, we can create this collective thinking. This is the crowd intelligence idea. So instead of having people in their silos, we say, okay, no, let's do this like that. Let people talk to each other directly. Let's not have that bottleneck of one person doing the thinking and the coordination. Let people coordinate themselves. And that's the idea of this self-managed team, right? So you have one person, right? So here we have the person accountable for signing the direction. This is where we're going with the product, but not being the bottleneck. And we have the rest. We are the developers, the guys doing the actual work. And then we have a Scrum Master, right? And the Scrum Master is the person that helps to help all these people to be able to collaborate. That's the actual task of the Scrum Master, right? Help people to become that team where 1 + 1 is more than 2, right? So we want to have the co-intelligence, having this one big brain, not just one single brain, right? To leverage this co-intelligence, right? Guys, does it make sense to you? Do you have any question up to here? Are you still with me? So I assume you are.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay, good. So let's move on. I want to talk about the actual challenges now. So what we see here is that we have to leverage really each developer, right? To get more out of them. I mean, this is something that every manager really is dreaming about. I want to have that team where everybody by self-managing, becoming more motivated, and deliver more value, be able to just do more and have more engagement. Because if you ask, when I ask my teams, when I help them, when I train a team and help them to become agile, I always ask them, guys, I mean, do you like Scrum? And they say, yeah, no, many complain, and okay, you should complain. That's not a problem. You know, being agile means being transparent. That means, yes, we want to hear your complaint, because then we can improve. And then I ask them, yes, okay, yeah, it's not easy and all that, but do you want to go back? And they say, no. They never say, yes, I want to work like before. They don't want that, right? So that's interesting. So, but to make this all happen, we have really challenges. So I mean, if we draw this, it looks nice and it looks simple, and yeah, it looks easy on paper. It looks easier when you draw this and all that. But what is the actual challenge, right? You know, the proof of the pudding is eating it, right?